Stampers, this is Kim with Great Inspirations, and today I have 4 very simple cards that were made using the Stampin' Up Truckin' Along bundle. And that bundle includes the Trucking Along stamp set, which has the truck image and several images to put in the truck. Around the truck, here are some trees, some grass, some little lines that you can put under the truck to look like a road. There are some sentiments. This stamp set is a 2-step stamping stamp set in that there are outline images and then images you can stamp to fill in the color. And there are, Stampin' Up has several 2-step stamping stamp sets that are available. So some of what we talk about today will not be specific to this stamp set, but will work with other 2-step stamping stamp sets. Now we also have the punch. Now it's right here, and it is the Trucking Along Truck Builder Punch. At this point in time, it is not available for order, but it should be back in stock in mid-October. I know that sounds a ways off, but it's really not that far. However, there are tons of things you can do with this stamp set alone. However, if you want to wait until both are available and you buy them together, buy them in the bundle, and that will be a 10% savings. But let's talk about the cards. Each of these cards is basically the same with just a few different things. Maybe, for example, I use some designer series paper for the background here. And this one I changed up from using an embossed background to just using a strip of designer series paper. But each of the trucks are done just a little differently, and we'll talk about how I did each of those. But again, these tips, while I am using one specific stamp set and punch, some of them can also be used with other stamp sets with coordinating punches or even coordinating dies with a stamp set for a stamped image. So let's get started. And we are going to look at this one first. And for the truck image, the only thing I did was to stamp the image. And I know this is a very small piece of paper, but you'll see why later. Oh, actually, that's not the one I want to use for this one here. We'll use this. And we're going to just stamp this image right here, and I'm just going to use some tuxedo black ink. Stamp my truck image, and then as you see here, we have, in this case, some sunflowers, which is this image right here. But I'm going to stamp what I've stamped in this truck, these 3 little buckets with different plants. So we'll get our stamp that has the buckets, and we want to stamp them right in the truck bed. So you just line your stamp up so these little buckets are right above the line for the truck bed here, and there you go. And then all I did, I simply colored in the images. I just used Stampin' Blends or alcohol markers, colored in the truck, and colored in the flowers. Now on the next one, I used what I call the filler stamps, the stamps that put in the color. And I used that for the truck, the tires, and the flowers. So let me get my filler stamp, and today I thought we would use some boho blue. It's pretty much what I just happen to have out on my desk. And we're just going to ink up our stamp, line it up, and hopefully I can do this. There we go. And there is our truck. Need to reach around here and get some ink. I just realized I needed another color ink so we can ink our flowers. I'm going to use some Flirty Flamingo. And you know, we've already used this stamp right there in the bed, so now here's the stamp that will fill in the color. Just line that up. And there is that. Now, the stamp, there's not a stamp to fill in the color on the buckets or to color in these little leaves. So what I did on this one, I just used some, well, I used my Garden Green Stampin' Up marker, just a regular marker, and colored in the leaves. And then I just used some other markers to color in the buckets. Now on my corresponding blog post for this video, there will be a list of all the supplies I used and the cutting measurements and some instructions on how I made the cards. So now we'll just pretend the buckets are colored in and we've added some green. But we are going to add the color to the tires, and there is a stamp for that. And it's kind of a funky looking stamp. It almost looks like eyeballs, to be honest. So, but it could, if you just put it down, it could just get all twisted and turned. So what I did, I put it right where it needs to be, lined it up, took my block. Now we're going to ink up the stamp. I'm going to just take this little bit of ink, get that off. Okay, now we're just going to line it up and stamp. And there you go. You have the little wheels and the tires. Okay, let's move on. Here is my next card, and this one I used the punch. I simply did what I did for this one, stamped it, filled in the color, and then I punched it out using the punch. And you can see we put it in here, but if we punch it, those flowers are going to get punched off because this doesn't punch out the flowers. So what I found that works best is I'm going to take whatever would be my focal panel, and I'm going to take my truck outline, stamp it where I want my truck to be. Then I'm going to take my flowers, ink them up, and I'm going to stamp them where I want them and set that aside. And now I am going to stamp another truck on this piece of paper, and this piece of paper happens to be 4 inches long by 1/4 inch wide. Or I'm sorry, 1 1/4 inch wide. So we've got that, and now we're going to add the color. We'll do the boho blue again. Let's see, let's get this out of the way because this is the card that we're concentrating on right now. And we've got the boho blue ink. I'm just going to line this up and stamp. Then we'll get out the black again with the tires. Let me clean this off a little. And I'll do just what I did before, line them up. There are 2 little circles, and they sort of line up with the hubcaps. And that is what, if you get those on there correctly, you're set. Just lined up. I'm going to ink the stamp. And get our things lined up again. Everything's lined up, and we'll stamp. And there we go. There's our truck. And now you will see this, when you make it 4 inches by 1 1/4 inches, it fits in here really great for the punching. Yep, I've got that over just a little too much. There we go. And there is our truck. And we'll bring this in here. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to put this truck right here. And as you can see, there are our flowers, just all nice and great. And we know exactly where to put our truck because we had our little sample right here. Now you will, of course, before you adhere this, you'll want to color in your flowers in the buckets. And if you want to stamp any of the road or the grass or dirt or whatever's going to be below your truck, you might want to stamp that first. And then place this on here. And on this card, I use dimensionals. So that's how I did this one. Now we have one more card. And this card, I used only the punch. So what we're going to do, well, I did do some stamping, as you can see, because I stamped the Farm Fresh. I stamped the tires. And I also stamped this little tree. And again, it's 2-step stamping. It's right here. I stamped this first. It's backwards from the truck. Remember, on the truck, we stamped the outline and then we colored it in with the filler stamp. On this one, I did it the opposite. I stamped the color, which in this case was Granny Apple Green, and then I used this stamp to outline the image, and that is Garden Green. And then on my truck, I took a little piece of acetate or window sheet, and if you get Stampin' Up photopolymer stamps, this comes with them, and that's all I did. You might be able to see. I just cut a little corner off right there, and on the back side of the truck, I adhered that little window. And I punched that window out using the punch, and I will show you how to do that as well. But for right now, let's take our boho blue, and I am going to be able to get the, I'm not going to be able to get the fenders, but I'll be able to get the truck. There that is. And then we need to get a couple fenders, and they're right here. I think I'll put it in this way. There's 1 and 2. We have scraps going every which way, and that's fine. And then we're going to need 2. I use this. We'll need 2 of the tires. They're up here. 1, 2, and then we will punch the window in just a moment. because I have two ways to punch the window. So here we go with this. And what we're going to do is I took a sponge dauber and some ink that was the same color as my cardstock, and I just sponged around the truck just to give it a little more, I don't know, depth, dimension. Let it stand out a little bit. And I just went all around it. Didn't take very long. Just like that. And I did the same to each of the fenders. And I may have done this one. Let me see. I've got to remember. Goes like that. Yeah. Okay. This is what I need to. Doesn't take a lot. Okay, so next I put on my tires. And I just used a drop of glue. Lined them up. So do as best you can. And then I took the stamp again for the tires. Dry it off a little bit. See, kind of looks like eyeballs. And I just lined it up. There those are. Then put on these fenders. And there's our truck, but we need the windshield. There's a couple ways that you can punch the windshield. I made this template, and as I said, it's 4 inches long by 1 1/4 tall. And I just laid it right on my truck, and I took a pencil. Just like that. Then you have to turn your truck upside down. And also when I did this, I forgot, I cut a little handle because it was just too hard to maneuver the truck in the punch without some kind of little handle. So I just put this right here, and you could put either a little bit of adhesive there, or I think we'll just use a little piece of tape. And I just knocked down a few things as I was getting the tape. Just a little bit of tape right here. And then this is going to allow us to maneuver this into here. Punch, and there's your window. Now, another thing you could do if you wanted to, let's take some colored cardstock, is to stamp your truck. And let's go ahead and stamp it with the boho blue. And this is good if you want to make the truck this one and punch out the windshield, or this one. Well, no, not this one. This one, because this is the one that we put up on dimensionals. You could do this the same way if you wanted to punch out your window. But what happens is the window is bigger than this little window here. So it punches out quite a bit. So you'll just need to remember that. But it still looks nice. So we have this on this piece of cardstock that is 1 1/4 tall by 4 inches. Well, I think this is 4 1/4 inch. Maybe 5, but I don't know. The length isn't that important. But that 1 1/4 inch, that's perfect to stamp your truck on and punch. So you could, nope, don't punch yet. Let's do the window first. Do the window first. And now you'll go and see what I'm talking about how much of it, it takes out. There, you've got your window. And then you can punch the truck. And there you go. So those are some different options. Like I say, there's that little truck that was punched, but we didn't punch the window out. And here's one that we stamped and punched the window out, and here's one that we just made and punched the window out. Now, of course, this will look a whole lot cuter when you put something in the back of it. And you can do that by, I just fussy cut this and adhered it. At the bottom of my tree, I cut a little tab, and that's what I put the adhesive on to hold it to the truck. So you can do that. Or you can do like I did with this one. Stamp your truck on your focal panel. Stamp what you want in the back of the truck. Then you punch out your truck and put it on there, and it looks like your truck is full of the flowers. So those are just some tips I had for using the Trucking Along bundle, the stamps, and the punch. And again, all of the supplies I use, the cutting measurements and instructions for making these cards can be found on my corresponding blog post, and the link to that blog post can be found in the description of this video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and until next time, stamp happy!